We are live. What
You're
is
on.
up, everybody? We are back now with part two of our um, podcast, webcam, whatever you want to call it. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much. How's it going over there?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just, long week, but ready to talk some wrestling.
Yes,
What do you
definitely.
got for us?
Well, where we last left off, we were trying to figure out how to rebook Bret Hart's first full year in WCW.
Right.
I think we should probably pick off where we left off with that and then move on to other things.
And we'll get into this week in wrestling.
Yes, it's been an interesting week to say the least.
It
But,
definitely has.
but the
So,
title, it's
where
Wrestling
did we
Rebook.
leave off? Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Well, I think where we last left off, we had Bret Hart at Super Brawl facing Kurt Hennig
Okay,
after defeating Scott Hall at Sold Out.
right, yes.
Catch up a little bit on the first episode. If you catch up the last half hour of that podcast, you'll see where we were going with things here. The important thing was that Hogan had started to get a little bit insecure about the fact that other members of the NWO were finally getting title matches and he wasn't the only one getting them, and how this was going to lay out where the rest of the year is going to go as well as follow up where Brett's going to go, and eventually we're going to head into a collision with them. So Brett's on a mission to take out the NWO one by one. Hogan's feeling insecure because other guys are getting the title matches. Scott Hall was the first one to get a title match. Hogan accidentally, quote unquote, perhaps, it's ambiguous, costs Hall the match against Sting, which leads to some tension in the NWO. And two of the three main guys in the NWO end up having a match in Uncensored. Hogan
Okay,
versus Hall. In the meantime, Bret Hart's focused his attention on another prominent player in the NWO, and that's an old foe of his from the 80s, and that's the Macho Man Randy Savage. And Kevin Nash will be taking on Sting for the World Heavyweight title, all at Uncensored. So we've got three pretty big matches heading into here. I think what we have to do is lay out that Hogan and Hall is kind of a big mess. I think that is where you see a lot of NWO infighting. It goes a little bit better than the Hogan Savage match that happened in the original timeline, just because Hall is a little bit younger, so he might be able to carry Hogan a little bit better to a presentable match. On the other hand, I have something that might be a little bit different. Something that might be a little controversial happen here in the Bret versus Savage match. I have Savage winning.
okay,
And I have Savage winning because Hogan gets involved and either blasts Bret with a chair or some other foreign object over the head, maybe a bat, maybe something else. And Bret's out of commission for a month because he's taken this devastating blow to the head. He's concussed.
that's a good way to write him off TV for a little bit too. I mean, so we don't overkill the whole Bret Hart thing.
Right. And then, again, Sting and Nash in the main event for the title. Hall's trying to help Nash win the belt for the NWO. Hogan, again, is trying to win the belt for the NWO, but it looks a little bit messed up here. It looks a little bit muzzled, and all the over interference cost them the title again, and Sting is able to retain. So the infighting in the NWO is getting out of hand. But for the good news for Hogan, at least in his opinion, is that he's got Bret Hart out of commission for a little bit to give him some breathing room. Now, here's the interesting thing. The next night on Nitro, they announced that because Savage beat Bret Hart at Uncensored, and there was no decisive winner in the Hogan versus Hall match because of all of this infighting in the NWO, that Savage is the number one contender for the title now.
Oh God.
And Hogan is saying that because he helped Randy Savage take out Bret Hart, he owes him one. And Savage tells him he doesn't owe Hogan anything, and that the only thing Savage owes the NWO is getting the world title back. And Hogan, again, is pretty pissed off about the fact that the NWO is not falling in line and giving him the title.
Right.
But to try to ease tensions, Hogan, Hall, and Nash are challenged by kind of like in the original storyline. At Spring Stampede, we got Savage versus Sting for the title. The second big match on that card was Hogan and Nash versus the Giant and Piper in a Vince Russo classic, which was not a Vince Russo booking decision, but
Go figure.
the bat on a pole match, which could be the weapon of choice from the Bret Savage run-in. Now that I'm thinking about it, because what you do is you have the NWO agree to fight Piper and the Giant. They say they have a third man,
Okay.
reversing the psychology of the NWO when they first came in and saying that they weren't going to announce their third man right away. Piper and the Giant refused to announce that for them either. And, you kind of build up still the tension like you got in the original storyline. Hogan and Nash aren't seeing eye to eye. Hall is siding with Nash, though, this time. If you remember in the original storyline,
Hall was siding with Hogan.
Yeah.
The original, and that's when we saw the split, the Wolf Pack and the Black and White.
Right.
A little later on, but
Right. And then you still have the tension between Savage going for the world title. And it leads to Spring Stampede. You got this 3-on-2 match. It's going on for a bit. And then the third man for Piper and the Giant is revealed to be Bret Hart. And the match is going along. There's a tag to Hogan. There's a tag to Bret. Everybody's getting really pumped up. And Hogan is looking at Hall and Nash, tag back out, and they're just kind of like, since they're fed up with him, kind of like, hey, man, it's all on you. Hogan walks out of the match. He says, screw this. And you get Bret Hart, Piper, and the Giant laying down a 3-on-2 on the Outsiders, and they win this match. Whereas in the original story, you had Hogan and Nash going over Piper and the Giant.
right.
In the main event, you've got Savage and Sting for the title. Kind of the same thing happens here. Hogan is trying to get involved again with the intention of it looking like he's trying to help the title off of Savage, but we don't really know if he is or not. We don't really know what his true intention is. Hogan is, though, blindsided by Sting. Sting is fighting him off, but Sting cannot fight off the interference of Kevin Nash, who drills him with a jackknife. Savage hits the elbow. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Just kind of like it happened in the real time.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. I like where you're going. I like. Did you drop the call again? We're doing this again. Let's see. Where are you, man? But anyway, yeah, we have Randy Savage as a new champion, and more dissension within the NWO. Guess we're going to have technical difficulties every show now. Sorry, I'm trying to get him back on. Let's see. But,
There?
yeah, you back?
I'm back.
Here we go again.
Always having connectivity issues.
All right, well, we're back now. We're good.
All right, well,
that wasn't that bad, like the last time.
now.
But, okay, so we have, where you just left off, we have Savage winning the title.
Wins the title. And then you build up to the same match you had the next night on Nitro, which was Hogan versus Savage. You remember how that match ended?
I do not. No.
Hogan winning the title. Bret Hart interferes. Bret Hart joins NWO Hollywood or whatever.
Yes. Yes, I do remember that now.
So
Yep.
we get something kind of similar. We get an NWO clusterfuck of a match. We get run-ins from the outsiders. We get run-ins from the Disciple. Maybe even our boy Vincent or Virgil shows up for a second.
Oh man, by the way, I'm gonna stop you
Yeah,
right there. It's part 2 of this podcast, and your offer still stands to Virgil. If you're watching, we want you on our show. We want you
that's right.
on. We will book. We will book a Virgil World Title run culminating at WrestleMania, and he will face Hogan at WrestleMania. Virgil, Olive Garden, Fuck Money, Strip Club, our show. Let's do it. Go
We'll
ahead.
make it happen. We will make that happen.
Hope so.
I what I have here in the end is I have Bret making the run in again because he didn't get a piece of Hogan the night before, and he goes to attack Hogan. Things kind of get out of control, and he hits Savage by accident, not on purpose this time, and Hogan is able to capitalize and score the pin on Savage and win the title. And this will lead into a rematch at Slamboree for Savage and Bret, with Savage explaining to Bret that his vendetta against Hogan is getting out of control and that it's messing with him, and that's where he's crossing a line, and this just got personal. And you get the same match at Slamboree that you got with Bret and Savage. Bret goes over.
You got to have Bret go over this time.
Bret goes over this time. One of the things that happened.
Now, here's the thing. I'm sorry to cut you off. But wouldn't you want to make his title win a little bit more memorable and have it be his first title win against Hogan at Starrcade?
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think Bret winning the title at Starrcade is going to be that necessary. I think you just need to build to Bret versus Hogan.
So, okay, I know I'm jumping ahead then. Then do we even need to have the title on the line for that match at Starrcade?
I don't think we do. I think there could be much bigger things on the line than the title. I think you're going to see that, and as in real life, there was a wave of momentum that was hard to kind of ignore at that point too in WCW. And you have to kind of run with it, but you could still get everybody's just desserts. Everybody could still have their opportunity to get some special main event moments in here.
All right, so right now we're at Slammiversary, which is approximately how long away from Starrcade? Starrcade was in December, so
we're in May right now.
We're in May right now. Okay, so we have Hogan and Bret with the tension, and we're leading up. We still have 6 months to go.
Yep.
What are we doing? I mean, that because you're getting there kind of fast. So let's see what you got.
I don't think we're getting there that fast.
Okay.
I think to put Bret over, what happened, Savage hurt his knee in that match. And Savage tried to fight at the Great American Bash, and it was kind of a disaster. Bret's kind of proven how far he's willing to go because he's now taken Randy Savage out of commission. I think you get some kind of issues with Hall and Nash and Hogan still building up, obviously. There's going to be still that tension there.
So that's a good question here then. When do you have that payoff? Do you have it before Bret Hogan, or do you have it after?
I think you don't necessarily need it to be paid off. I think you just need to see that it's coming. You don't need to have it in a match, and you don't have to have it. You don't have to have it right there. I'll explain as we go along.
Well, that's what I guess what I'm asking was I don't think you need to have a match, but do you see the starting of the split of the NWO where you kind of get Hall and Nash out of the NWO, and by the time Starrcade comes around, it's just a B team NWO? Like what's your thinking with
Well, I
that?
mean, what I'm trying to get to here is we're going to get there slowly but surely. We're going to get there within the next month or two, where we're going to see the NWO really implode. And really that's about it with them. But I mean, it's still technically a faction. It's still technically Hogan having his way with things. We're going to see some splintering off, a lot of tension build up along the way. It's a way to kind of show that the NWO is dying within, but something has to happen that ultimately kills it off once and for all. Sting beating Hogan for the title, and the jealousy and the insecurity that Hogan has with having to be the champion is going to be one of the driving points of that. Bret Hart coming in is going to be one of the driving points of that. Hogan's desire to be the only one to be the champion is going to be a factor into that. There are going to be a lot of things that we're going to see unfold here in the next 6 months, and we need 6 months worth of time to build the Starcade to get there. And because these guys are going to get sidetracked with other things that are happening, and they're going to have opportunities come up. We're going to see a lot of things happen along the way that are going to be interesting. And one of the big things that I think we're going to have to see here is still we can't stray too far from some of the things that happened. Bash of the Beach is coming up in a little bit. We're still going to see Rodman show up. We're still going to see Karl Malone show up. We're still going to see Jay Leno show up. These things kind of are going to happen just because when we think about it, we can maybe kind of change up some of the things we saw, but some of the guys have credibility where they're always going to have credibility, and we won't have to worry too much about them getting killed off.
Now, since we're having this ultimate payoff at the end with Bret and Hogan, do you still have, Rodman and Malone and Leno come in and do the same things that they did, or do you have them in different roles?
No, I pretty much leave that stuff as is. They drew money, and you can't argue with that. I think one of the things you have here actually is Hogan doesn't work these smaller pay-per-views. Hogan doesn't work Slamboree. Hogan doesn't work Great American Bash, just kind of like how he normally wouldn't do that in real life. So, I mean, we have time where Hogan's off TV. We have time where Bret gets a little bit of a break. There are going to be things that are happening here. And I mean, as we get to the Great American Bash, I think one of the things that we see here is the outsiders are really upset with the fact that Bret Hart took out Randy Savage. There's loyalty to Savage. We're noticing that there's really not a lot of loyalty to Hogan anymore. There's loyalty among the boys.
Right.
Okay, so Hall and Nash want a piece of Bret Hart. There's a guy on the roster that is slowly building up momentum. And by slowly, I mean he's rapidly building up momentum. And that's Goldberg. Bret Hart picks him as his partner to fight Hall and Nash at the Great American Bash. And that's your tag team main event right there. You have Goldberg run roughshod on Hall and Nash. You get Bret in there to get some shots in. And that's a match that builds up because Hogan is still going to fight Page and Malone with Rodman. But at that huge Nitro in Atlanta, you're still going to get Goldberg built up as the number one contender. And a great way to do that right there is to give him that exposure with Hall and Nash. You give him that exposure with Bret. He's got that endorsement. And Goldberg still wins the belt off of Hogan just like he did in real life. And, with that, you get that huge moment. You get the fact that Goldberg is this face that is riding a huge wave of momentum. It doesn't detract from the fact that the NWO is still the main storyline, but you have a world champion that is drawing monster numbers like Goldberg was doing at the time. He's drawing on house shows even, which Hogan doesn't work. This is a great opportunity for the company to still kind of move themselves into a new direction. It's something they weren't anticipating, but you have to ride the momentum. I don't think you can change that. Bret gets a little bit of a break in the summer. He's fought off the outsiders for a bit. He's gotten Goldberg to kind of be endorsed as the guy who gets to challenge and beat Hogan for the title. We still get the Page series with the celebrities. Hogan and Rodman still win like that. We still get Leno and Bischoff, and that still happens. And we build up to Fall Brawl. We build up to War Games. And in the original plan for War Games, what they did here was um, they had three teams. They had a Wolfpack team, they had a WCW team, and they had an NWO Hollywood team. And whoever was the guy who scored the winning fall got a shot at the world title at Halloween Havoc. Um, I would make this a straight up 4-on-4 WCW versus NWO match. And this is where things get really, really hard to handle with the NWO. This is where things start to get a little bit out of control, and you see a lot more tension build up between them. Because you got Hogan, Hall, and Nash, obviously, as your big three guys in that match.
And Virgil is your number 4?
Not exactly, no. I was thinking Scott Steiner would probably be the guy that you'd put in there.
Good
Big
pick.
Pop Pump. And,
the big bad booty daddy.
You could build Bret Hart. You could build DDP because he's had this feud with Hogan now. I would have Sting in there. And the guy that Bret Hart brings in as a surprise that shocks Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh.
So,
okay.
You have a big announcement. You have Bret and Sting kind of like leading this WCW team with Paige. And they announced that they needed a fourth guy. Goldberg is the world champion. Goldberg's got a match where he's defending the title off against, we'll say the Giant or somebody like that. Maybe we even get that dream match with him and Jericho.
Well, we got to admit, Ultimate Warrior's WCW run, that short run that he had, was awful.
It was.
It was an awful match with Hogan. It was an awful comeback. You're going to still put this in your rebooking?
It's about ratings. It's about drawing it and telling out the story. Just because a match is bad doesn't mean the story is unnecessary. So,
you're right. You're right.
So, I mean, we're going to change the way the story went a little bit. This match gets out of control. Hogan's basically pissing his pants because he's got four guys who are literally out to destroy him. He's got tension among his team. Hall and Nash are fed up with him. War Games is a submission match. Those guys are just sitting in the corner and they just let Hogan get their just ends. I mean, Steiner kind of puts up a fight. He's new to the group. He's trying to impress Hogan. Steiner kind of becomes Hogan's number 2 guy throughout this because of the fact that he's trying to move up. But it's just those 4 guys beating the shit out of Hogan. And Hall and Nash, I mean, obviously they get licks in there. There's a fight. But WCW team finally goes over in a War Games match, which has not happened in the existence of the NWO. Hogan's furious with Hall and Nash. He says he wants them out. Bischoff won't let them out of their contracts. Hall and Nash really start to kind of form this Wolfpack group with the guys like Conan and some of the other mid-card guys, but they can't technically break their NWO contracts. So they're wearing the red and black, but they're still technically under the NWO banner. They can't fight that.
Okay.
So you're starting to turn them more into tweeners and faces, but they're still technically forced into being NWO members. And this is going to be kind of where this is going to lead up to, where the tension is going to build up to, and why this is important. You get Hogan and the Warrior in that match at Halloween Havoc. I'd rebook it to the point where Hogan is starting to look weaker and weaker. Hogan is starting to become more insecure. Hogan's now got to fight the one guy he never beat.
Mm-hmm.
So what does Hogan do? Hogan beats the shit out of the Warrior. I mean, he kills him. He just demolishes him. It's 15 minutes. Hogan's in complete control of the match. Is it a good match? Probably not still. But Hogan goes over convincingly. Hogan doesn't try this stupid fireball thing. There's none of that awkward pausing and things like that. It's just a fight, and Hogan takes out the Warrior. The Warrior flopped in
WCW. So you have him win clean.
I have
Warrior
Hogan
wins
win
clean.
clean. I have Hogan
Oh,
win clean.
Hogan wins clean.
He wanted him back for the win. Hogan's got to kind of rebuild momentum in a way. Hogan's got to rebuild confidence leading into this big match he's going to have eventually down the line. And I think nothing builds his credibility up quicker than if he destroys the Ultimate Warrior and puts him over. I mean, the Warrior goes down and job's clean as a sheet. In the bigger match, we got Goldberg versus DDP for the world title in the real storyline. I actually say because Brett captained the WCW team with Sting at Fall Brawl, Brett gets a title match with Goldberg. And it's a good match. It's a close match, but the streak actually continues on.
Thank God.
Bret Hart goes down to Goldberg, unfortunately. He doesn't win the title yet, but there's respect.
And no concussion or stroke, right?
No concussion here.
Okay.
But I mean, Bret and Goldberg shake hands. Bret understands that this guy's a good champion. He'll get another shot at him one day. So World War III is building up. We get a lot of guys in this match who want a shot at Goldberg at Starrcade. That's where all the focus is at. This is an opportunity where Kevin Nash still wins the match as he originally did. So we still get Goldberg and Nash for the world title at Starrcade. We have, though, some tension build up between Hogan and Bret in this match. This is the first time these two can actually kind of get a hold of each other. I mean, like they really, really get a chance to kind of wallop at each other. But it's a back and forth. They double eliminate each other. They throw each other over at the same time. And then Nash takes care of business with, I don't know who it would be necessarily. Maybe a Luger or a Page or somebody. And you go from there. Now Ric Flair's back in the picture. Ric Flair was gone in real life because of his legal disputes with Bischoff and his contract. He wants control of the company because he hates that Bischoff still technically has control, a lot of control over WCW. And we build up to our 3 big matches at Starrcade. So, Hogan and Bret realize that enough is enough. These two have to go at it. Hogan says he wants Bret Hart out of his life. If he beats Bret, he's going to screw him like he did in Montreal. He's going to send him crying back to Canada. He's gonna make what the screw job looked like in Montreal look like a friggin' he'll say it just looks like somebody took candy from a baby compared to what he's gonna do to him. And Bret also says that he's fine with that. He'll put up anything against Hogan as long as Hogan agrees that the NWO is completely abolished if he beats him. And it's just there's one company left standing. It's WCW, and the NWO is dead, finished. Their contracts are null and void. The organization dies out. And this plays into like Hall and Nash kind of being like they're sick of being under Hogan and Bischoff and these people at this point. This was a revolution they wanted to start, and it got hijacked by these people, and they're pissed at them too. So they're okay with this stipulation. They don't care. And Flair is fighting for control. Nash has got Goldberg for the title. And you build up to those 3 big matches. Okay? You have them try to do the cattle prod thing with Hall, but Goldberg still kicks out. He spears Nash and he jackknifes him. He wins the match just like he normally did. I mean, as he did not do.
He's got to win that match. You cannot have Nash beating the streak. I'm sorry. That was one of the downfalls of WCW right there.
Goldberg does not lose that match. Goldberg retains the title. I would do what they did the next night on Nitro with the Flair Bischoff match, which you might not remember, but Randy Savage came back the next night and helped Flair actually win. And
yeah, I remember that.
There was tension between the NWO and Savage. You bring him back the night before. You have him help Flair win it. Flair's got control of WCW's decision-making now. Bischoff is completely out of power in WCW. So the NWO does not take the world title. Bischoff does not have any say in what goes on in WCW. And now it's Brett versus Hogan. Brett's gone, or the NWO is gone, and you get this knockout dragout fight. You get a ton of run-ins probably along the way. You got WCW guys like Sting and Page and Piper and all these other guys. Goldberg gets involved fighting off like the Steiners and some of the B team guys, and you get this moment where Hall and Nash get in the ring, and you think they're gonna try to preserve the NWO for the sake of it, and instead they look at each other, they give themselves a little hand signal, and they jackknife Hogan. They put him down when the ref's not looking because Hogan's already hit Brett with something. They even up the odds. They walk out. They put the hands up. Everybody knows that they don't care anymore. They're through with this guy. The match goes on for a little bit more. Hogan misses a leg drop. Brett catches him, puts him in the sharpshooter. Hogan has nowhere to go. Hogan gives up.
Wow.
Killed off the NWO.
You're going to let Hogan lose cleanly by tapping out?
I do, yeah.
Isn't that going to kill any momentum that he will end up having when he makes his comeback?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Don't see it because he tapped out to Sting the year before at Starrcade, and he came back. It's Hogan. Hogan doesn't lose momentum.
Okay.
Hogan is, Hogan never loses momentum. In the end, I mean, that's how it plays out. You got Bret Hart with the big moment where he goes over Hulk Hogan clean at the biggest show of the year for a company. He is clearly positioned at least as the 1A face in the company. He's the main event guy. He's like in the spot right now. If Goldberg is a more popular version of Roman Reigns, Bret Hart's kind of the John Cena at this point. Bret Hart's kind of like truly the main guy. Goldberg's the main guy because he's the champion, but Bret Hart's going to be the guy who runs the main event programs.
Major difference between them. We actually, at the time, liked Goldberg and loved Bret Hart. Nowadays, fans, they don't like Cena. They don't like Reigns.
And I think it's a good opportunity for, things to kind of reset. Hall and Nash are fine with just going back to being the outsiders, kind of doing this Wolfpack thing.
Now, you do have the Wolfpack still around then.
Yeah, I would. They sold merchandise. They were over. But you don't need the NWO brand with it. And you explain that they have to stick around. And that big moment where, they finally have had enough and they put down Hogan at Starrcade for that moment too tells you how much this thing got out of control. And, they come in. They're obviously not that well liked by the locker room, but they're over with the fans. They were building up momentum a lot. They weren't fully heels during this build-up.
Right.
Goldberg keeps the belt for a bit longer. I'm not sure when he drops it. Brett's pretty solidified. Hogan can make a comeback down the line in the red and yellow, and you take it from there. But, I mean, if you want to look at that, Bret Hart's clearly the centerpiece of where WCW wants to go in 1998. You can build up a lot of momentum. You can have him be a guy that has Hogan's number, has something to prove still to him.
Well, that's the thing. It's not even building up momentum. They're taking the momentum from WWE or WWF that they gave to Bret Hart, and they're just running with it. And by doing exactly what you just laid out, it alleviates probably the worst Nitro ever with the finger poke of doom. Mm-hmm. It probably alleviates Bret Hart injury. Because then, you probably don't put him up against Goldberg at the time. And it probably drags out his career a little bit longer.
No, I agree.
So, well, that is how we would book the WCW Bret Hart version. Now, what's the next rebooking thing that we're doing?
Well, we're gonna take a look at a card that produced one of the most memorable matches in history, but a lot of people believe that there could have been a match that was maybe a little bit bigger.
I do want to. I do want to put a little disclaimer here too. When we rebook things, we are not going to go too far out of the realm of possibilities. So anything that we discuss is going to be something that could have and should have happened.
Right.
So that's just my little disclaimer. But go ahead. Sorry, I had to cut you off.
Mm-hmm. So that's where we go. We're looking at WrestleMania 18. We had that great Rock Hogan match. There's a really wild and electric moment. The real rebirth of Hulkamania. But there was one match a lot of people will argue maybe should have been that match instead of Rock Hogan, and that's Stone Cold versus Hogan. And we look at what happens if we rebook the entire card around that match as opposed to the Rock Hogan match.
Right. And I know we discussed it off air, and we had some pretty good ideas for it. And I think it's an interesting twist, and I think it's some stuff that could have been done and probably should have been done.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so I just want to touch real quick on what's going on this week in the world of wrestling.
Okay.
Yesterday, big loss. China, she passed away.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything yet on what the what happened. I could only assume it was had to do with drugs, some type of drug related overdose or what have you. But
Right.
big loss. It was kind of weird seeing all the WWE superstars, saying stuff just because of what has went on the past couple of months with her and Triple H and Stephanie and Vince and the interviews that were done. I know her and Triple H has had a big thing.
Mhm.
What's your take on the whole situation?
No, I mean it's upsetting. I was actually asleep and I woke up and I was checking my phone maybe around 2 or 3 in the morning, the morning before it happened or the morning it did happen, and I saw that actually at the top of my Facebook feed, and there was sadly a moment in my mind where I was kind of like, this is a shame, but also you kind of knew it was coming, unfortunately, and I hate to say that. I
And you know
really,
what? You know what I hate to say too, but it is. I'm not a big religious guy, but at least finally she's at peace. You know what I mean? She was out there for the last year and a half, and she was just she was struggling. She had a lot of demons. So
no, she did.
I'm not a big religious guy, but at least she's finally at peace.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. The first thing I thought of was she really did contribute something totally different than anybody else ever did to the business.
Hmm.
Um, you
And
know,
that's stuff that we'll never see again. I mean, there's not a girl on the roster, and the women's division is coming up, but there's not a woman on the roster that is going to win the Royal Rumble, is going to win the Intercontinental Championship. We're just in a different time, different era. So, absolutely revolutionized wrestling.
right. And yeah, I mean, it's a shame the situation as it is. I mean, so many things with her over the last few years, people just kind of shook their heads and wondered why this is the path that has been, the one that she went down. But, one thing after reading a lot of the things that people said was that a lot of China didn't change. I mean, she had her demons, but she was still genuinely a very sweet and kind and funny person. I was reading Mick Foley's little take on it, where he ran into her at a convention and invited her back to the house, and he was really glad he had that moment. And one thing you always hear about how great she was with everybody's kids,
Hmm.
how much fondness there was among a lot of these people who, ironically, maybe aren't always on the best terms with the WWE right now. The Jim Rosses, the Mick Foleys,
And our
um,
boy Vinny Rue is
Vince,
very good friends with China, or was very good friends with China. She was just on a podcast that he did not too long ago.
Yep. So that that was it was a rough. It was surprising, and then Prince died, and then everybody paid attention to that.
Yeah. Poor girl. She couldn't even have her own you know death be remembered because again she was outshadowed by another person.
Mhm.
But at all surprising, Triple H and Stephanie's comments and how similar they were.
That was just PR.
Yeah,
I think Hunter's much more broken up than he'll ever admit.
I'm sure. I mean, granted, it was 20 years ago now that they were anything,
Mhm.
but I'm sure that it's upsetting. It's got to be very upsetting.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, what a big loss to the world of wrestling. Did you also see she tweeted March 31st, maybe, how she just wanted to be in front of the WWE universe one more time and thank everybody, thank the fans for everything that I guess we've done for her.
Hmm.
Um, it's sad seeing that tweet, and then a couple weeks later, she'll never get that opportunity.
Right.
But yeah, so other news today. I don't know if you got the update. I was just reading Bleacher Report. Bubba Ray's girlfriend is now a free agent. What do you think?
Don't care.
Yeah,
Nope.
I would like to see her come to WWE. She could be on my TV screen all day long, man. That's my girl. I love her.
It's fair.
Um, were you there when we met her? Uh,
Nope.
were you?
No, I wasn't
Oh,
actually.
you were? Oh man, yeah. Velvet Sky and Bubba Ray Dudley came to our area and did guest bartending at a bar that is 10 minutes away from where we live.
Hmm.
And me and a couple friends went out there. Unfortunately, I guess you had probably something else going on that day. But all right. What'd you think of Raw?
Um, couldn't think of anything that truly stood out.
No, I mean it was not that it was a bad Raw, but it was probably the worst one that Shane McMahon presented us with. But again, it wasn't horrible.
No,
It was just uneventful. Um,
I mean
Payback,
we got
but
the setup for the Bullet Club, and that could be really interesting.
well, big news coming out of a house show last night. Um, Finn Balor drops the NXT title.
Yeah, Samoa Joe, new champion. I was pretty surprised. I mean, I've heard that he was hurt during the match. I'm surprised that they would pivot though in the middle of a match like that though. So I wonder how much of it was intentional and how much.
Well, I brought that up to a friend of mine today too. I said, could you imagine that all this hype right now, and just to come to find out that the only reason they did the title change was because Finn got hurt during the match or something. But I think there's Twitter reports out there right now that are are saying that I guess he was out there saying I'll see you Monday or something like that. So it looks like Finn Balor main roster.
Yeah. So
What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good move? Do you think it's a bad move?
um, I think it's a move that's appropriate. I mean, if they're really moving ahead with this movement of a lot of guys coming up, I mean, it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for some of these guys in NXT. I don't watch the brand enough, but I couldn't tell you who the next couple breakout stars are going to be. But we who knows who we're talking about in 6 months? It could very well. I mean, Nakamura's gotten a lot of attention.
and I'm actually surprised. I mean, I'm surprised that he's not on the main roster. You know, early reports early on were saying that Nakamura, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows, Doc Gallows, whatever you want to call him, would start out on NXT, and now we're just seeing Nakamura.
Yeah.
You think it's maybe Vince won't know how to use him on the main roster, and he'll get Tyler breezed, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think you just need some time to feel him out, and no, I mean even Joe. I mean AJ's the only guy that came straight up. I feel like, Joe's stuck in NXT for a bit. Joe's probably going to be stuck in there just because of the Tyson Kidd thing for a bit longer. But I think it's the right fit for now. I mean, he's going to get bigger. He's going to be able to put guys over in NXT that are going to need that rub more than guys on the current roster. It's going to be more beneficial, I think, that way.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially now, man, that NXT roster, they need some guys because everybody seems to be on the main roster now.
Yeah.
Now, next time we'll probably be doing a podcast will be after the Payback event,
Yes.
and then we'll be able to review it a little bit. I have the card up. What do you think of the card so far?
I think the card's looking pretty strong, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the only weak match I see right now, surprising enough, because I thought it was going to be a good one, is Enzo and Big Cass against the Vaughn Villains. But main roster, casual fans are not feeling the Vaughn Villains.
I think you got to watch them a little bit more, and we'll see. And I think Enzo and Cass are a big enough act where if something, I think the match favors the Vaudevillains just because they're heels against New Day. And I think if Enzo and Cass are as over as they seem right now, Vaudevillains going over them could maybe get them some heat. I think they're going to probably strap a rocket to the Vaudevillains at first to try to get them more over than they've been so far. They're an odd act, but they're a fun act. I enjoy them.
I really like them a lot, and if New Day has taught us anything, do not judge a team based on your first options. I mean, we hated New Day the minute they debuted, and fast forward a year later, a year and a half later now, they're the hottest guys on the roster.
Oh yeah, they're the most overact in the company by far.
And I think the Vaughn Villains have a great gimmick. I think that it's a different gimmick, but I like it. I like it. It's not your Highlanders. It's not your Deuce and Domino. It's not your those two over the top gimmicky guys that we had back in 2008, 2006, 2008. They have a gimmick, and I like it. It's different, but I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Natty and Charlotte, two legends in the corner. What's your thoughts, man? What are they doing? On paper, Natty's got to win.
I kind of feel the same way. I'm not sure if that's the direction they want to go. I think it could be interesting if they went that way. It's a nice thank you to Natalya. I don't know. She's been
I'll tell you what right now. If she wins it, it's not going to be for long. She'll drop it at Extreme Rules.
Probably.
I don't think they'll give her the Zack Ryder treatment and lose it on Raw, which it could happen, but I don't think they would do that. I think if Natty did win it, like it looks like it should happen that way, she'll lose it at Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
Zayn and Owens, IC title. What do you think about that?
Well, it's not for the IC title, but I think it'll still be a good match.
You're right. It's not. They're not even champion. I'm sorry.
Oh boy. There go the followers. No, I think it'll be a really good match. I'm not really sold on who's going to win yet, but I can see Owens winning and this being a series that keeps building up to Zayn getting that one win finally over KO. And I kind of think that's the way they should do it. Owens has established himself for a year on the roster now. Zayn shouldn't pin him clean. Owens has been kind of more yo-yoing with his wins and losses. Have him go over Zayn somewhat decisively and have Zayn still have enough where he needs a rematch and build them up that way, I think. Sammy's definitely a guy who's lost in the past, and he knows how to get over despite that. I think that's the direction that they need to kind of go with that one.
I think with this match too, I think it needs to be the match to start the show.
Mm-hmm.
As high profile as it is and hyped up as it is, I still think it needs to be the one to start the show, get the crowd excited. And if you get the crowd off in the right way,
Yeah.
It's just going to set up the rest of the night.
No, I think that's fair. I agree.
Ambrose Jericho, our boy Jericho.
I think Dean's going over.
He's got to.
Yeah.
You excited for this match?
Not really.
Me neither. Miz and Magic Mike. I mean, Superman. I mean, Cesaro.
I think Miz is going
for the IC title.
I think Miz will retain.
Think so?
Yeah. I'm not sure how, but I think he will.
Seems like recent reports I heard. It seems like I've heard that Vince is actually fairly high on Cesaro now.
Oh, I believe it, but I think Cesaro needs to move up a little bit further, and I think Miz is in the right position, and I don't want them hot-shotting the IC belt now. I think Miz actually deserves a shot to be the champ for like 3 or 4 months and see where it goes.
He's got to cheat to win, though.
No, he will. He's not going over clean. There's no question about that.
The biggest question mark here now, Reigns and Styles. I think Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows are going to come out seemingly to help AJ, and they turn on AJ, and it is the Balor Club in WWE.
I could see that happening. I would like. It all depends on when Seth Rollins is healthy, but I really would like to see a Balor or Bullet Club versus Shield reunion match.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing.
And my gut tells me that's where they should lead to. I don't know if it'll happen, but that's what I feel like it should happen. Especially when you got a guy like Rollins who's coming back from an injury. He's probably going to have to come back as a face because you always pop the guy who's a big star who comes back from an injury, So why not just run with it? Just have him come out in his Shield garb, and he just, that's where they go with it. So I would love to see it.
The way that they're building this up, or the way that I see it playing out, is because it's the way WWE is it's going to be, like I said, the Balor Club attacking AJ Styles.
Yep.
And it's going to lead to Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, and somebody else against the Balor Club at Extreme Rules.
Right.
We knew the minute that this match was announced that there's no way that Roman Reigns as a face is going up against AJ Styles. But I guess they found a way. They're going to get the heat off of the two guys in the match and put it on the Balor Club.
Possible.
I don't think Roman wins clean here. I think this happens before the match is over.
You're probably right. I would probably go with that.
All right, so getting on to the next event, next podcast we're going to do WrestleMania 18. Rebook that. We're going to lead up to it, probably starting around the Royal Rumble area.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to probably at that point recap Payback, see if our little predictions that we just did are correct.
Right.
And I got a top five for you that I want you to think about. And our top five for next podcast, in honor of Austin Hogan, the match that never happened, but the match that should have happened, and the match that could have happened. Pick 5 matches that never happened, but should have happened and could have happened.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. The 5 matches that never happened.
Sounds good.
So, anything else you want to cover before we call out a wrap?
I think that's all I got.
All right. Well, that was part 2, and Wrestling Rebook. We will catch you next week.